All right, if you're looking for solutions to optimize your online investments, there's something out there that can help. It's called technical analysis. Joining us to discuss is Rebecca Walser, president of Walser Wealth Management. Rebecca, thank you for being here. Can you just break down what technical analysis is and how can people use it to optimize their investments?
Yeah, it's the exact opposite, really, Alicia, of the fundamental analysis. And so what we're talking about here is we're really tracking price trends over time, and we're using those trends to sort of predict future price movements of share stock equity prices is what we're talking about. So unlike fundamental analysis that looks at, your EPS, your growth, your total year over year comparisons and analysis, this is more just a trending tool to really plot prices and glean all kinds of information from that exercise.
When I think of technical analysis, I think of kind of staring at charts and historical price charts and going from there. I know there's a more modern version of it and other tools that can be utilized. Can you just talk about what are some of the tools of the trade to utilize a technical analysis?
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the most common that people have heard of is the resistance and the support of, indicators. So if you've got the 50-day moving average of your price trend, that you track that with the 200-day moving average. And so you get those awful sayings where we have the death cross where the 50-day moving average crosses below the 200-day moving average. But then we have the golden cross where the 50-day moving average crosses above the 200-day moving average. And the golden cross is a very bullish indicator, whereas the death cross has been able to predict effectively a lot of our recessions over the last 100 years. So that would be a really good one. I would say the relative price, the relative stability index, where we plot price increases and price losses to sort of give us an overbought or an oversold situation. So if you have an RSI above 70, these are really technical, sorry, but if you have an RSI above 70, then we have an overbought situation, and we likely are likely to see that equity price come down. If we have an RSI above 30, then we likely have an oversold situation, and we might see a rally in that equity. So we do have trends that have held long term, and we can glean those for some information.
Can you tell our viewers more about the average directional index and how it's used by some traders to determine the strength of a trend?
Yeah, the average directional index is a really good one because that one really involves three different equations, believe it or not. And so, this is not for your lay person, and obviously use a technical tool that can help you. But what we're looking at really is the positive price momentum movements and the negative price momentum movements, and we track those. So you have positive DI, you have negative DI, and those are both plotted. So if you want to say, well, what does that mean? What is positive DI? That's your closing high minus your previous high. That's your plot that you're making, and you track a line of that. And you have your negative DI, so that's your closing low minus your previous low, and that is tracked. And then those things are extrapolated to create the ADX line, or basically exactly the index that you're talking about. And we can glean things from how positive the trend is. So if the DI is crossing, the positive DI is crossing the negative DI, and we have an ADX of greater than 25, then we can say that that's a buy indicator and that we have a strong price momentum towards the positive. If we have DI crossing negative DI crossing positive DI, then we have a sort of a sell indicator or even a short indicator depending on where the ADX is. If we have an ADX that's above 20, then we know that. So that's a really good trend line for positive and negative price momentum.
How can this help a trader or investor focus on a particular trading approach and develop a more disciplined strategy?
The ADX is really something that allows us to dive into price, changes over time and momentum and strength of the price change. And so when you see that indicator and you start to see, okay, this is a buy signal or a sell signal or even a short signal, you can start to go into other technical analysis and really figure out why is that trend happening? Is there something else? And then really beyond the technical analysis, you might have to go to fundamental analysis, see if something's happening with that company in specific. But I will give a caution here is just remember that technical analysis is really using past data to project future, and the trends do hold out. We do see trends. That's why it's so valuable. But it is not the macroeconomic analysis. It's not what's going on with the economy in general. It's not what's going on with inflation. And so it's very specific to your stock price, and you need to make sure that you don't forget about the forest for staring at the one tree, because the forest can also give you a lot of information.
Yeah, it's so great that you point out the limitations there. Before I let you go, what's the best way a novice trader or investor can start optimizing their investments utilizing technical analysis?
I would start with a basic and entry level book, because you can get into the weeds in this matter very, very quickly. And I would also say that you definitely need some kind of technical tool that will perform the calculations for you, because it's great to understand the calculations and how to use the calculations, but to have to actually calculate them for the equities in your portfolio, it can be very time consuming, and you can really make a mathematical error. So you definitely need a tool, an analysis tool that will help you get you those actual indicators, the lines, the resistance, the support lines, and you can see without you having to do your plotting yourself. So you need a tool for sure, and you need some education on it for sure.
Rebecca, really appreciate your insight here and kind of breaking down technical analysis. Again, to your point, it can be a lot, but there are easier ways to get in, and maybe utilizing a book and some of the technical tools can be the entry point. Rebecca Walser, president of Walser Wealth Management. This segment was brought to you by Webull. $0 commission on stocks, ETFs, and options. Download the app and start learning, sharing, and investing.